Welcome to Gearwig's very first battle report. 35-point game between Brendan's Khador and James's Skorne, here at Crossroad Games in Standish, Maine. Brendan is playing Strakhov's Tier 4 list with an attached War Dog. Battle group consists of Torch and a Kodiak. He has a minion of Assault Commandos with a Flamethrower. Has a minion of Cossite Woodsman. Has a Woman Manhunter over there. On the other side, he has another minimum unit of Assault Commandos with a Flamethrower, some Widowmakers, and a Widowmaker Marksman. James is playing pMorghoul for the first time. His battle group consists of two character war beasts, Tiberion on the right and Mullet Karn on the left. He has a minion unit of Beast Handlers there, Hekar the Destroyer. He has the Tyrant and Standard Bearer unit. He has a Gatorman Witch Doctor in the back, all to support a full unit of the new Praetorian Keltari. Brendan deploys his battle group and War Dog and places two trenches. James places his entire army like this centrally. Brendan's advanced deploy units are set up like this, and we are playing on the 2015 close quarters steamroller scenario. Brendan begins by allocating a focus to Torch and advancing his Assault Commandos into the trench. These Assault Commandos begin the game with Occultation. Second Assault Commandos also advance into a trench. The Widowmaker Marksman then advances up onto the high ground. We treated this as elevated terrain. And the unit of Widowmakers follows suit. Torch will then spend his focus to run. He started the game with Superiority, which gives him +2 speed, so he can run 12. It's nice. Kodiak can run for free, and he does. He can run 8. Strakhov advances. Uses his action to lob a grenade at Torch. If the grenade were to hit, it would leave a cloud effect around Torch. Torch would of course be immune to the damage, but he was just out and it deviated a little bit. Normally he deploys such that this hits, but he deployed a little off, so it deviated. It's all moot, as James has no shooting. Lastly, he runs his Woman Manhunter into the forest. James begins by advancing his Witch Doctor up and casting Zombify on the Keltari. We fudged the line of sight a little bit here, but that's fine. Then his Standard and Tyrant advance. The Keltari run and grab a position near the flag. Hekar runs up too. Mullet Karn just advances and then casts his Animus. He'll be able to advance again at the end of the turn. Like a run, he'll just be able to perhaps fit him in a little better. Tiberius runs. Morghoul activates, he advances. He casts Fate Walker on himself, so he'll be able to advance again at the end of the turn. He also casts Admonition on himself. If an enemy model ends a movement near Morghoul, Morghoul will be able to advance as well. So, a lot of fun movement with this guy. Lastly, the Beast Handlers advance up. James realizes he's a Fury short on his War Beast, so one of the Beast Handlers whips Tiberion and adds a Fury to him. And that's a turn. At the end of the turn, his 2 Fate Walker models get to advance. Karn shoots up a little bit, and so does Mulder. Brendan begins his second turn by considering whether or not he plans on casting Overtake. Before he handles his control phase, he wants to know how much focus he'll need. Overtake would cost 2 focus, he'd have to cast it on Strakhov himself. Strakhov would then have to move up, destroy an enemy model. If he pulled this off, someone in his battle group can make a full advance out of activation, which is awesome, and it allows Khador Jacks to get a lot of movement done in one turn. Unfortunately, the Keltari have a very high defense against ranged, and are tough, thanks to the Zombify, so this proves a little too difficult, and he decides against it. He upkeeps all 3 of his upkeep spells and holds on to the rest of his focus. And now it's time for the Cossite Woodsman to deploy. Hooray! Brendan loves Cossite Woodsman, mainly because everyone else hates them. They have terrible stats and all, but they get to ambush. They can often get a backstrike bonus and an aiming bonus. That makes them okay. They excel at killing support units like Menoth Choir and Skorne Beast Handlers. So let's see if they earn their points. The Woodsmen activate first and advance up. Then they start taking some shots at the Skorne back line. First Woodsman is in range of a Beast Handler and takes a shot. It hits. And damages him. The next one shoots at the standard in the Tyrant standard unit, is able to hit. And puts out a bunch of damage, is able to take him off too. Starting to earn those points. Assault Commandos activate next and get an Assault and Battery order. They take several ranged attacks, but only one manages to hit, and that Keltari misses his tough roll. Brendan considers lobbing a choking gas grenade in there, but after some deliberation we realize that those guys have Zombify, are undead, and thus wouldn't be affected by it. After the shooting attacks are resolved, they begin their charges. A couple in the back don't have open charge lanes, so they just run. Two of the Keltari miss their tough rolls, but the third one makes his. That's about average. Torch activates, and he advances up to get into position to use his flamethrower. He can shoot through his own guys here, they're immune to fire. Fires off a spray that clips the 3 or 4 of them, but all the attack rolls miss. Keltari are kind of tough that way. Now the Kodiak activates and runs again. This Kodiak may have benefited from that potential overrun movement. Could have really pushed him up, but here at least he's threatening the flag. Strakhov advances. Again, Brendan fires one of those grenades at Torch, set him up with a cloud effect. James still has no shooting, but Brendan is not to be deterred from this gimmick. He's going to keep doing it. And then the dog activates and advances towards Strakhov. The Widowmaker Marksman activates and advances forward off of the high ground. There's some hemming and hawing here, trying to decide on a target. He ends up picking one of the Keltari that isn't engaged, but misses, and then reforms back. That marker there is the Sentry upkeep spell. The Widowmakers activate, and they advance off of the high ground. They're able to take a shot at one of the Keltari and remove him, and make a couple shots at Malak Karn. Then they reform over by the flag. He accidentally reformed his marksman, who isn't part of that unit, but we didn't catch it at the time. The Assault Commandos activate. They do a shield wall order. They advance up toward the center, and they take some shots at Malak Karn. Brendan's measuring to see who's in, who's out. Most of them are out of range. A couple get shots off, and none of them do any real damage. Lastly, the woman manhunter runs up onto the high ground in the hopes to flank James here. And that is the end of Brendan's second turn. James begins his turn managing Fury, but we forget about Hakar's Righteous Vengeance move, so we handle that now. Usually this happens in the maintenance phase, but we're all about mulligans. He advances up toward the Assault Commandos and makes an attack on the nearest one. He destroys it and grabs a soul. He then activates, advances, and attacks that nearby Assault Commando, and makes a subsequent attack on Torch, but isn't able to do much. The Keltari activate and advance up toward the Assault Commandos. They make their attacks. They're able to kill one, two, and a third who gets stuck under the spear. But there he goes. And then they reform when they're done their actions, trying to engage the remaining Assault Commandos. As long as the Keltari are engaged, they're really difficult to kill with shooting attacks. This reform movement allows Brendan's Widowmaker Marksman, with the Sentry upkeep spell, to take a ranged attack. He fires a shot at the Tyrant, but isn't able to do any damage. James Witch Doctor doesn't have line of sight to the Manhunter here, so he runs to jam her up. Maybe he'll survive next turn. pMorghoul goes, he casts Admonition on himself. He decided not to upkeep it, then decided to recast it. Then he abuses Malak Karn to give Malak Karn a speed boost. And he advances near the flag. Beast Handlers move up. One Beast Handler enrages Malak Karn. Now Malak Karn can charge for free. He'll have a strength bonus, but he'll hardly need it. He activates. He charges the Assault Commandos. He's able to kill his charge target and sidestep. There goes his target. casts his Animus, Fate Walker, so he'll be able to scurry out of here when his turn is over. His other attack kills that other Assault Commando. He buys an attack. That attack misses, but the fourth attack he buys is able to kill the Assault Commando. Tiberius advances. He casts his Animus, bump, which makes him almost impossible to kill. Tiberius is a tough nut. James Tyrant activates and runs. Threaten these little wimpy guys and provide some cover for Moloch Karn when he scurries down here at the end of James' turn. Brendan begins his turn by upkeeping superiority. And allocating 3 focus to Torch. Hey, the Cossite Woodsmen! Did you forget about them? I sure did. As they run, let's take a moment to watch Brendan use his ridiculous measuring tape, which I can only assume he uses to tailor women's clothing in his spare time. Yeah, it's just awful. The Woman Manhunter activates, takes a couple whacks at the Gatorman Witch Doctor, and finishes him off. Kodiak activates, advances up to Hakar, and is able to destroy him. Strakhov activates and uses his feat, which increases friendly faction models' charge distance by 4 inches, among other things. And he begins to take some shots on that Tyrant. He's hoping to clear a lane for Torch. He's able to bring it down to 1 box. The Widowmakers activate, and the one Widowmaker who isn't engaged takes a shot at the Tyrant. And is able to remove him. Torch activates. Thanks to the feat, he can charge for free. Charges Moloch Karn. He'll take 3 free strikes doing this. One of the free strikes does a lot of damage, but nothing's crippled. Brendan decides to boost his charge attack. He has sustained attack on his big buzzsaw, so if this hits, he can keep hitting over and over again. The attack hits. Does a lot of damage. His second initial attack doesn't hit very hard. But he's able to buy another attack with a saw blade, and thanks to sustained attack, it automatically hits. By superiority, it's hitting pretty hard. He rolls high damage, and that's enough to kill Moloch Karn. A devastating, devastating blow here. The Widowmaker Marksman activates and advances. Takes a shot at one of Keltari and destroys him. He's able to reform 3 inches away. These Cell Commandos activate, they do Assault and Battery. He only bothers with the Flamethrower, it's the only one that's really going to potentially do any damage. It does not do any damage. And then they charge. James uses his Admonition move after that charge. Gets Morghoul into an even more threatening position. The charge destroys one Keltari, and that's Brendan's turn. After Morghoul leeches Fury, there's a little bit left on Tiberius, so he needs to make a frenzy check. But he passes. He's a very well-behaved elephant. The Keltari activate and advance into position. They kill one commando. They destroy the Flamethrower, which sets the Keltari on fire. And then they get their reform moves. The Beast Handlers activate and advance up. And they enrage Tiberius, who activates and can charge for free now. He charges the Kodiak. Aiming to do a whole bunch of damage with his big charging bat. Oh, but he rolls Snake Eyes on the charge attack. Terrible roll. Just terrible. A later initial attack rolls terrible damage. And a later additional attack with his big crazy bat again rolls a 3 for damage. That's a real bad set of dice. So the Kodiak lives. Morghoul activates, he charges the Widowmaker Marksman. Destroys him. Morghoul casts a bump on himself. He uses Maltreatment to steal a Fury from Tiberius. Now Tiberius can be transferred to. Morghoul uses his feet. Then he uses his sprint advancement to jam right up into Strachov's face. Thanks to Morghoul's feet, none of Brendan's models can spend focus this turn. Not even to upkeep superiority till it falls off. There's no sense allocating anything, so he keeps all of his focus. Yay, it's the Cossite Woodsman again. My new favorite unit. Here they can get both the aiming bonus and the backstrike bonus. So now they're almost unstoppable. Yep, just a tide of destruction. Look at them go. Earning their points. Watch them eliminate this 2-point unit. Yeah. The Woman Manhunter runs. The Kodiak activates. It hits Tiberius with both of its fist attacks for minimal damage, but it procs a chain attack. Brendan and I quickly discuss throw mechanics, but Tiberius can't be thrown or moved or knocked down, so he locks his weapon. The Cell Commandos activate. And make melee attacks against the Keltari. And destroy one of them. Strakhov activates. And thanks to that damn war dog, he's immune to free strikes. Can't cast or do anything else, so he might as well run. He's able to make it all the way to the flag and get base to base with it. The dog follows suit. The Widowmakers advance up. They'll take some shots against Morghoul, which will miss, but they manage to clog some charge lanes, which is their real job right now. Torch activates, he also blocks a charge lane, fires off a range attack that does nothing. And Brendan ends his turn scoring a control point for that flag. After leeching Fury, Tiberius needs to make another Frenzy check, which he passes because he's such a good boy. Morghoul activates and advances. And we immediately realize that we forgot to check the fire during the maintenance phase, so we do that now. And one of the Kaltari burns to death. Morghoul's first attack destroys an assault commando, and he overtakes over to another. He destroys that one, and overtakes again. Morghoul really excels at this, shredding light infantry. He destroys the last flamethrower, who blows up and sets Morghoul on fire. Getting a lot of really good close-up forearm shots this game. Really excellent camera work. Morghoul casts Abuse on Tiberius. Really needs to wreck that Kodiak later in the turn. At the end of his activation, Morghoul can sprint, and he sprints to the flag. Last Keltari activates and advances toward the Woman Manhunter. And he's able to dispatch her with some lucky dice. Tiberius activates, his weapon is locked, so he loses that initial attack no matter what. He makes a strength check against the Kodiak in the hopes to break the lock. If it breaks, Tiberius will be able to make additional attacks with his now strength 20 Tetsubo weapon. So it's important. James rolls a 1, because all his Tiberius rolls have been terrible. And he and the Kodiak tie on their strength test, and on a tie the lock remains. His remaining initial attacks are able to cripple the Kodiak's locking arm though, so then the lock does break. He's able to buy additional attacks with the big huge bat. But his dice are still terrible, so terrible. After all of this, the Kodiak is left with 1 box, and he couldn't clear the zone. Brendan scores another point for dominating the flag. Brendan begins his turn by allocating 3 focus to Torch. And then Strakhov activates and casts Superiority on Torch. Brendan's in a great spot here, but he might be able to kill Morghoul with this charge, so he gives it a shot. He boosts his charge attack roll and misses. His other initial hits, but does very little damage. Rolling an unnecessary location die. He's He's able to buy a third attack. That also hits. But does very little damage. Kodiak activates, he's super crippled, but he's able to roll 1 damage die and poke 1 point off of Tiberius. The Widowmakers activate and just try to take up some space. Cossite Woodsman, yeah! Woo! Yeah, go, woo! Look at him run, look at him. Yeah. Contesting that flag. Man, great job, Woodsman. Totally earned your points, probably. This puts James in a tough spot, as Brendan will score again as he's still dominating his flag. And James's only contesting model is Tiberion, who I realize now I've been referring to as Tiberius, who was Emperor of Rome in 14 AD. After pMorghoul leeches Fury, Emperor Tiberius needs to make one more frenzy check, not shown here. He fails this check, which is really very terrible. James is really missing his beast handlers on this turn, beast handlers that were so cruelly destroyed by the ever so points efficient Cossite Woodsman. The frenzy attack wrecks the Kodiak, of course, but now Tiberian can't activate, he can't contest. James has no model at all that can contest the flag, which means Brendan will score a 4th point at the end of his turn and a 5th at the end of Brendan's turn. Even though he's immune to free strikes, pMorghoul doesn't have the speed to get to Strakhov to try an assassination attempt, so there is no way for James to win, and he concedes. It was a good game, considering that both players were new with their casters. Brendan had been playing Cygnar for a long time, hence his Cygnar dice and crazy old tokens. His first ever Khador games have been with this Strakhov theme force, which is a bit unconventional. James plays a lot of Skorne, but this was his first game with pMorghoul, who can be a bit tricky. Losing Malak Karn was the obvious turning point. Strakhov's feat gives Charging Jacks +4 movement, add that to the +2 speed from superiority, and a possible 6-inch out of activation overrun move, and Torch's threat range becomes exactly 1,000,000 inches. Anytime you play Strakhov, you have to be careful about leaving any possible charge lanes open, because there's always one turn where you can send a fully loaded Superior Jack flying across the field. That said, James' position wasn't nearly hopeless. If Tiberian had wrecked the Kodiak on his initial charge, which is not unreasonable, he should have been able to get the jump on control points by dominating that flag. Tiberian/Tiberius excels at holding flag areas with his bump animus and just crazy good stats. pMorghoul would have been able to clean up any contesting light infantry and still sprint back to score the flag, something he's good at. Sadly, terrible dice and some sloppy Fury management allowed the Kodiak to last 2 turns too long. All of that is secondary to the main, overarching, and obvious conclusion to be drawn from this game. That Cossite Woodsmen are the most efficient unit ever conceived, and deserve a spot in literally every army list regardless of faction. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more battle reports like this one, email comments and suggestions to boss@gearwig.com. And check gearwig.com for frequent updates.